and I could feel something happening, but I couldn't get it to really lock in. So I'd try a higher voice, a lower voice, and then a high voice, low voice, or a low voice, high voice. I was just trying over and over and over. And suddenly, it felt as though I was dreaming and that I fell, or I was falling in my dream, which is a weird feeling if you've ever had it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the next thing you know, I'm opening my eyes and I'm looking, and I'm basically just screaming through space like I'm in a bubble and just going. And I'm thinking I must be dreaming or I must have passed out. It felt very real, but sometimes vivid dreams do feel real.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I eventually ended up in a place that was a gigantic white room. Don't know how to explain it. It was just huge. You could not tell where the walls, the floor, and the ceiling joined.
Welcome to Starseed Essence Media. I'm Eva Rozier, your host. Our guest today is Jerry Wills, a researcher, explorer, teacher, an energy healer whose extraordinary life has taken him from remote regions of Peru to some of the most mysterious archaeological sites on Earth. Jerry says he's experienced unusual perceptions since childhood, later undergoing a near-death experience that profoundly changed the direction of his life. Through decades of travel, healing work, and investigation into ancient civilizations, consciousness, and human potential, he shared his experiences with audiences around the world through books, lectures, documentaries, and expeditions. Today, we're sitting down to discuss one of the most remarkable accounts, the Gate of Gods, Aramu Muru. Aramu Muru in Peru.
Yeah.
Aramu Muru in Peru, where he said he stepped through what appeared to be a solid stone and encountered a reality that challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. Jerry, welcome to Starseed Essence Media. Thank you for coming on. I'm so excited.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. It's a privilege to be here with you.
I love your starship.
Yeah, thanks. That's where we're broadcasting from, so you can receive our signal.
Awesome.
Yeah, behind me, you can see, what is that? Looks like Africa is coming into view now. Let's move off to the side a little bit. Yeah, right there. There's Africa. And we'll go flying across the Atlantic in just a moment, get to the United States.
Awesome. I love to be, I want to be in that starship. I guess we are together here.
It's pretty lovely. We have great coffee.
I need some coffee. It's
Coffee's
5 o'clock
good for
here.
you.
It is good
It's
for
5
you.
o'clock somewhere.
That's right. I wanted to go ahead and bring in your story, but I wanted to kind of, I know it's hard to summarize everything, but starting back from your childhood, you could just go ahead and tell the story about how you were found in the abandoned house and what brought you, when did you start experiencing unusual things, basically?
Well, that's a loaded one. Yeah. To answer your second question first, I think my entire life has been filled with unusual things. It's a unique path that I've walked. And sometimes I had no idea that something unusual was going to lead to something productive or important. Because when you're living life, you're not paying attention to that. You just notice, oh, this is different, or that's strange, or gosh, what was that about? But yeah, it seems like, when I look back over the years, there have been quite a few quite odd things that have taken place. And as far as the origin story, that's going to be a book that comes out, I don't know, within the next 6 months, I'm sure. It's going to be called Origins. Basically, what it's about is, and it's my story. It's about me, of course.
That's awesome.
But uh, the thing is that a lot of this stuff was just memory until I started having some much later in life, I might add, details that start to surface. And so the strangeness of all of that started to eventually produce a fuller image of what had taken place. But in my memories and being that young, you don't have really much in the way of memories. But I do recall that I was brought here. I was delivered to a house. I don't know, was it a farmhouse or a shack, what? But I was delivered to a house, and I was supposed to be picked up by the Army Air Corps. There was no Air Force at the time. And I was taken to Fort Knox Hospital, and I don't know how long I was there, but I was eventually handed off to a man and his wife who was in the service. No idea what he was doing, not been able to find out, which is kind of strange in its own way. And then the wife she was incapable of having children. She was incapable because as a child, she and her sisters played with radium, which they used to put radium in uh, rat poison, mouse poison, rat poison. And so they would take this, it would glow in the dark, of course, rub it on their teeth and smile, and their teeth would glow. Well, little did they understand or even have a clue that doing that basically was poisoning them with the radioactive material, and it destroyed their reproductive systems.
Wow.
So that's why she couldn't have children. So here I am being adopted by this husband and wife, and I remained with them, at least with her. He passed away when I was 7, and I remained with her until I left home. I think she finally passed away somewhere in my mid to late 30s. But I never understood why I was so different than them. I'm 6'9". And not to say something disparaging about them, but they were not at a level of mental congruity that I was. They were very simple farming people, and I was studying in the second grade. I was reading. Second grade, I read Einstein's theory of relativity twice, and I had discussions with my teachers on the second grade about it, which they'd never read it before. So it was, looking back, it was pointless. But it was like that throughout school. I had a photographic memory, and I just sort of managed to get through school. I mean, back in hills of Kentucky, you go to school because you want to get a high school diploma, and that's it. Nobody went to college. I would say nobody, but I didn't know anyone who did. And so that was the whole point. School was not an environment for deeper learning. It was an environment to act as a daycare center for young people growing into adults until they could leave school, and now you're on your own. Well, during that entire process, I was different. I was seeing energy, and I was telepathic. I could hear people thinking. I knew things were going to happen before they ever happened. I could hold things and know the story behind it and see the pictures. I could look at a picture, and the picture would come to life, and I could see the entire panorama of the story just by holding the picture. And Later, I don't know, I was probably around 12, 13 years old. I noticed while I was chopping weeds in the garden that when I would chop, and it was dusk, sun hadn't gone down yet, but it was that nice, you know, quiet light, of the evening. And as I was chopping the weeds out of the garden with a hoe, I noticed those sprigs of light would fly out of there and then remain for a second, then just go away. So I got down on my knees and chopped another plant, and I saw it much more clearly. So I was pretty impressed by that. No one else could see it, and I didn't want to kill the weeds. Though I realized what it was, put my fingers in it, and I saw the images. It was its life force energy. And then I discovered that if I really looked, I could see it around everything and everybody. And people, well, not really people at that point, but animals that would have a problem, I would see it. So I'd want to put my hands on it to take a look or to feel or whatever would happen. And when I did, I could see right through them, right to where the problem was. And it was all just 3D for me. I could see it quite clearly. So I thought, what does the other side look like? So I put my hand on the other side and compared the two, saw the problem. So I just thought, let's just rearrange this so it goes back to where it belongs. And I did. And so the first experiences with healing at that point came as a result of working with animals. And it was later that I tried it on a human, which didn't end very well. The folks in Kentucky are very superstitious, or at least they were when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried helping a man with a hurt knee. And of course, it worked. It worked just fine. But he looked at me like he'd seen a ghost and walked off. His knee was fine. Now he could walk off. But word got around the community. There's something not right with that boy. And I was always being chastised anyway to just stay quiet about this stuff. Well, now it was in the local conversation, the coconut telegraph of the community. And, well, it wasn't appreciated or respected. It was feared. And that's when things got a little dicey, and I had to just come to terms with the fact that I had to just stay the hell quiet, not talk about it. So I got used to doing that. There were so many people I might have been able to help, but I just didn't. I left home. And of course, when you leave home from back in the hills of Kentucky and go out from there, the world was a vastly different place. And I discovered that there weren't any people who were interested in this sort of thing at all. They were interested in getting high, drinking booze, partying, that sort of thing. And I suppose some things never change. It's not much different now, just a different generation.
Yeah.
And I tried doing that too. I just wanted to be normal like everyone else. So I denied those gifts for quite a while. They were still there. I still had access to them. I mean, gosh, one time there was this place. It was called the Lighthouse. It was, I don't know if it's Presbyterian or Lutheran. I don't know who they were. But the church, they had this house, which was a meeting place for youth, and it was a youth outreach center. It wasn't Holy Rollers, but it wasn't far from it. And I thought, finally, because, well, let me back up a bit. My cousin had gone there. She was seriously into getting high and having sex and partying and all that stuff, which, I don't judge her for that. She enjoyed it, but it wasn't for me. But I could see her energy and I could see what it was doing to her. And I hadn't seen her for, my goodness, 2 or 3 months. And then one day I saw her at a local department store in the town I lived in. And she looked totally different. She was at peace. She was smiling. She was almost blissful. I asked her what had happened. She said, well, I found Jesus. I went to the lighthouse, blah, 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 blah. I thought, oh, yeah? Well, why don't you come and check it out, Jerry? Sure, why not? The whole time I was trying to be a hippie anyway. And so I went there, and the next thing you know, I mean, there's of course a story behind this, but the next thing you know, I'm doing what they felt was the proper way of doing things. You have to use certain words that have the connotation of Jesus and God and all that. And so I learned the words, and well, I was putting my hands on people and healing them.
Yeah.
And they were all quite fascinated by that, actually quite blown away.
Yeah.
What I remember is a guy that had a broken leg and his cast was up to his thigh. Poor guy. I don't know how he got it, but it was really a huge cast, and it was hurting. So I just put my hands in the cast. I looked inside. I saw the break. So I decided, why not just fix it? I used my own leg as a template. So I did. I said, now, does it hurt? Nope. All right, stand on it. So he's standing on it with a stupid cast. Says, stomp your foot on the floor. It's the only thing I could think of. He did. No pain. Says, well, I'm going to cut this cast off. So he did. There's nothing wrong with his leg. And that one event elevated me to a high position in this little group of people because I had the gift of healing.
Wow.
And so that all went just swimmingly until I was called into the church by the pastor. I mean, there's a lot of people that I helped.
Yeah.
So called into the church by the pastor, big fancy church downtown, and went in there with my bell bottoms, my t-shirt, my love beads, long hair, sunglasses. And it was summer and I'd walked. I didn't have a car. I was probably 18, 19 years old. And he told me that it was remarkable. We had a conversation. It was, it wasn't remarkable as far as a conversation goes, but, it was kind of like a chit chat. Then he got down to business. He told me that if I would cut my hair, stop drinking beer, stop smoking pot, which I really enjoyed smoking pot at the time, stop listening to rock and roll. Oh my, that isn't going to work, is it? And he would buy me clothes. He'd put me through the seminary, and that I could have a lot of money with what I was doing, and that I could have a nice car, and I'd have beautiful women in my arms and a nice place to live. And he just built this up, all the time, glory to God. Well, so he wanted me to change.
Yeah.
And my cigarettes were rolled up in my shirt. And I wanted a cigarette right then and there, but I didn't. And he said, what do you think? You could use all that money. You could use all that prestige. You could have a brand new car, convertible if you want. Go all over the country doing what you're doing. I said, but I have to cut my hair. My hair was pretty long. And, I have to stop listening to rock and roll. I liked having a beer once in a while. I enjoyed smoking a doobie. And I'd have to quit smoking also, he said. And I said, no, I don't think so. He said, well, this is what God wants you to do. And I said, I don't know who your God is, but I talked to God before I came here. And God told me he likes me just the way I am. So apparently we're talking to two different people here. And I don't think your God would require me to change to be who I am. And so he got really pissed off. And I left. Well, next thing you know, I'm being kicked out of this place called the Lighthouse. I must be full of demons, is what they said.
Oh. Mm.
I thought that was bullshit.
Yeah.
So, I didn't ever go back. And probably good thing I didn't.
Well, that is wild. I've opened up a healing art studio a few years back, and I had experienced that as well just the other day, actually, because I also work in the hospital, in the ICU, and I've heard the story about how you went into the ICU before and brought I think about that. I actually think about that a lot. Whenever I'm working, I'm like, I can't definitively say anything because really, you never know. You never know what can happen. I've heard of miracles, and that was a miracle story. I remember about that. You kind of went in and found the guy. He had been on the ventilator for a while and was basically, they extubated him, took him off of all the drips and everything, and there was no hope. And then you did what you did your thing, and he was back.
Yeah, that's the story of Kelly Osaka. It's on YouTube. If you look for Jerry Wills Fox TV, you'll find it. And that particular episode was up for a news Emmy at the time. I didn't know going into that the fella Kelly, well, he's a great big guy. He's like from Tonga. It's like just an enormous man, but just as peaceful as the person can be. But he'd gotten beaten very badly. So they didn't expect him to live, but I didn't know that going into it. So I went in and did what I do. I didn't touch him. I just put my hands near him. And I told his wife, yeah, he'll wake up tomorrow, but I'll have a really bad headache for a few days. Then it'll be fine. But I can't help his eye. I can't do anything about his eye. Because they had kicked him with steel-toed boots, and one of them burst his eyeball. It was terrible. I'd never seen anything like that, really. I mean, it was one of the worst cases I've ever seen. So, finished up. I left. A few days later, I got a call. Yeah, Kelly's awake. He didn't die overnight. And it was a big deal. Well, Fox News had been doing stories about me already for several years. And now here's another story. So they did that one. And it was very well received.
Yeah, you did. You did a lot for him. You brought him back.
Yeah, I did. And, the story is a bit more complicated than what I've told you. Anyone interested, they can watch it on YouTube. But, when you go into a place like that, I've been in hospitals many times. And I've worked on people in the hospitals. Fortunately, around the Phoenix area when this was going on, the doctors had seen me on the news, and nurses too. And so when I walked in the hospital, it was just like whispers, Jerry Wills is here. And so people were watching, without actually walking along behind me, but they were watching. And they would watch from the door. And then afterwards they'd come in and talk to me, and then doctors would show up and talk to me. They didn't give me any static at all. They want to know what I'd seen and so forth. And in every case, when I went in there, the person had a remarkable recovery. So there's a bit of respect, I suppose, from these folks. They didn't know how it worked, but they knew that it did. And so it was something that just went on and on. It just kept perpetuating itself. I wasn't trying to make it get big or to be famous or any of that. All I was doing was trying to help people that called out for help. But word spread.
Yeah.
It went all over the world. Really quite astonishing.
Well, thank you for your work here. I do want to, open the floor for that experience that you had, and it was in 1998.
Yeah, southern
And
Peru, Aramu Muru.
yes, Aramu. Gosh, I don't say it right now. I'm getting tongue tied. Aramu Muru.
That's it.
Aramu. You can roll your tongue too. Aramu Muru.
That sounds even better.
Good.
Sounds like a Scotsman saying it.
I've said it 1,000 times to try to get it right. I'm like, whatever.
Well, that was kind of an oddball thing that happened. You see, there was a point where I met a man, and it's a lengthy story. I won't go into it, but I met a man, an old man. His name was Pedro, and a really friendly fellow, and friendly and serious kind of simultaneously. And well, there's reasons why we became friends, which is part of the story. If anyone is interested in that story, it's actually part of a much larger story. There is an ebook I produced. It's called Fantastic Journeys, The Prophecy. It's on my website, jerrywillsshow.com. You have to be a member to get it, but you get it for free, or you can buy it. But why would you want to do that when you just get it for free and then get everything else goes with it? Anyhow, Pedro eventually told me about places because I was interested in odd places, lost cities and forgotten knowledge and mysterious places and all that. And I've been going to Peru for a long time. So plenty of people vouched for me that I was honest and I was, a person to show respect. So he told me about this place, Aramu Muru. At the time, there wasn't the big fanfare that there is now. By that, I mean, if you go there now, it's part of a tour and it's, I call it made up as another Disneyland attraction. All kind of goofy stuff going on there. But at the time, it was in the middle of nowhere near Lake Titicaca. Well, there were a series of other events that took place after Pedro. Pedro had told me about it and told me about the tones that he had heard people using to activate the doorway. And they would come through, they'd walk off towards Lake Titicaca, which was not that far away, probably 2,000 feet away. Then they'd walk back, kneel at the doorway, put their head in, make the tones, poof, they were gone. And so he said, this is the secret of it. He said, I've never done it. There have been people who have sat there playing music and they just disappeared. And children sometimes disappear. So I don't know how it works. And I'm afraid of it. But I just want to tell you. I said, well, I'd like to try it. And he says, I don't think I'd do that. And I said, well, if it's real, then I want to know. If it's not real, then I want to know that too. So, between the time of first meeting Pedro and then getting back to Peru and going to this location, and I went there very specifically for this purpose, Kathy and I were married. And so on November 11th, at 11 o'clock at night, we hadn't been married really all that long, a few months really. And I went up to the doorway. Now, keep in mind, this is at night, and Lake Titicaca is cold as hell. You have no idea how cold it can be when you have no atmosphere. There really isn't one. Because at 13,000 feet, atmosphere holds warmth. There isn't really any of that there. It's just cold. So I'm all bundled up, had a white London fog down-filled jacket, a waistcoat, and I go walking up there. Kathy's waiting over there, watching the passengers that were with us. This was part of a scheduled trip. There were a few of them there, and one was sitting with Kathy watching. So I knelt down. I made the tones over and over and over and over again, and I could feel something happening, but I couldn't get it to really lock in. So I'd try a higher voice, a lower voice, and then a high voice, low voice, or a low voice, high voice. I was just trying over and over and over. And suddenly, it felt as though I was dreaming and that I fell or I was falling in my dream, which is a weird feeling if you've ever had it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the next thing you know, I'm opening my eyes and I'm looking and I'm basically just screaming through space like I'm in a bubble and just going. And I'm thinking I must be dreaming or I must have passed out. It felt very real, but sometimes vivid dreams do feel real.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I eventually ended up in a place that was a gigantic white room. Don't know how to explain it. It was just huge. You could not tell where the walls, the floor, and the ceiling joined. It wasn't like there was mist or anything like that. It was just well lit. And there was no indication of corners or seams or anything of that nature. And so I'm thinking to myself, I hope this is a dream. So, it felt pretty real. So, in order not to become disoriented from my first arrival point, I started whistling, trying to do something very similar to how bats or dolphins do echolocation.
Mm-hmm.
There was no echo in this place. It was dampened. And so I was turning full 360 degrees, turn a little bit, whistle. I was counting my steps, 90 degrees at a time. Got back to my original position, thought about it, and I thought, So I just yelled out, is anybody here? Hey, anybody here? And by golly, there was this click and then a voice.
Hello.
And a lot of people have said, why do you suppose they spoke English? Hell, I don't know. But they did, or the person did. I want to know who I am. Who are you? So I told him who I was. How did you get here? I told him how I got there. And said, what is this place? And so we started a conversation. And in that conversation, the fellow, who was a man, related to me over this intercom what the place was. It was something that was what we would say is similar to what CERN is, but it wasn't like a large collider. It wasn't a big tube. It was just a big room. And then he told me that they were doing experiments there to understand the universe. So we chatted for a while. I don't know how long. I checked my watch. It didn't work anymore. I had this really dandy Casio watch. Gives you elevation and time, different time zones, all that jazz. No, it didn't work. It was dead. So I gave up on that. I didn't know how long I'd been there, but it felt like I'd been there for a while. And I realized, since I don't know how long I've been here, Kathy is over there sitting on a rock. The rock was like a big rectangular rock, long, squared. And I said, I need to get back because Kathy's waiting for me and it's cold and I don't want to stay here too long. So he said, well, we can help you get back. It's great. How do I do it? So he told me to start walking, and I did. And eventually, I seemed to come around a wall, and in front of me, there was this large, I don't know, it was an oblique shape. It looked like floating dark jello, and it had these rods. Just to me, it looked random. Maybe there was a purpose for their placement, but they just seemed like big sticks here and there, and just random. There was red. There were red beads running through them, and the beads were moving. Some rods were closer, others were far away, obviously, because I could see a difference in the size of those beads, and they weren't huge. At least it didn't look huge from where I was standing. And this guy, he suggested that I start running towards that thing. I said, well, what is it? And he says, well, that is something that we created. It is a small universe, and you came from inside that. That's your universe you're looking at.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, you see pinpoints of light. It was dark, but there was, I mean, if you were to imagine you're looking at it and there's all these different pinpoints of light, they're not moving. And this thing is just floating in the air. It was gigantic. So it says, we'll send you back where you came from. So he said, start running. So I started running towards it. I didn't realize how far away it was. I didn't have a point of reference. And I was running and running. And the next thing you know, I'm lifted off my feet. And while my feet are still moving, I'm going faster and faster. I'm not even touching the floor. So I stopped the running part, and it just made me go faster and faster until I got right to where this thing is. And I was inside of it. Now I'm inside of it, and I'm screaming back through the universe, it seemed. I traveled for a while. And one star was just always right there, dead ahead. I call it a star as a point of light, but it was a star. It was our sun. And eventually, it kind of moved out of view, and there were planets. I mean, lights that I could tell weren't stars. And then there was the Earth. And then I'm screaming. Now it's centered in my view. And I'm screaming towards this at an unbelievable speed. I'm thinking, oh, hell no. I've got to slow down. Well, I didn't. So I'm getting closer and closer. It's the dark side of the Earth, and I just never slowed down. So I just closed my eyes, squeezed myself up and gritted my teeth. And next thing you know, I'm inside of this antechamber. I don't know how I got there, but there I was, small room, not really big enough for me, just barely, I suppose. And I could see I can see light. So I moved myself a little bit to the right, because it certainly wasn't walking there. And there was Kathy sitting on that same thing, and she's got her head in her hands and she's crying. And another person, a gal, is with her, has got her arm around her shoulder, consoling her. A couple other people standing out over there to the right of my view, further away. And I thought, oh. So I decided to go through this door, which looked identical to the one I was kneeling before originally. And I couldn't. It was transparent, but I couldn't go through it. It's just like hitting a wall. There wasn't a lot of air in there to breathe. And I'm hyperventilating. This whole thing has just taken on a completely bizarre characteristic. Yeah. So I had to think. So I felt along on this transparency, and there was this same little notch. And there was a place where I could put my knees. So I put my knees there and I fell off the notch, put my forehead, like this part right here, in that notch. And I started making those tones. I figured that must be how I get out of here. Well, the air was so thin, I couldn't really do it well without losing my breath. Oh, Lordy. And I kept doing it and doing it, just like I had originally. And finally, I must have hit the right combination because I just found myself on the other side of the door, like on the other side of a mirror. And I stumbled back off of that and took about 3 steps and sat down on the ground and laid there staring up at the stars.
Wow.
And Kathy was just beside herself, and so were some of the other people. And she came over to me and, what happened? What happened? She said, you disappeared. And I said, yeah, I think I probably did. Well, tell me all about what happened. I said, not right now. Let's get on the bus, get the hell away from here. Because it actually kind of freaked me out.
Oh, yeah, that sounds terrifying.
So we rode the bus all the way back to Titicaca Lodge, which was about, 30 minutes away. Really nice place to stay when you're at Lake Titicaca, Titicaca. So we're in the room, and I'm laying on the bed, and I'm telling Kathy every single detail. Well, it would have been good if she'd had a recorder, but she didn't. And I went through all of it, and she had questions. I answered the questions. I said, what did you see? She says, well, you were up there. You were kneeling, making the tones, and suddenly you glowed, and then you just vanished.
Wow.
And she said, couldn't believe it. Got up, got closer, took a look. Well, hell, you weren't there. And the other gal that was there, she saw it too. Someone else did too. And I said, then, I've been there for, I don't know, like 10 minutes. She said, it wasn't much more, 5 or 10 minutes. And then suddenly there was a glow and you were back. And you moved away and you lay down on the ground. And I said, well, I think I'm lucky to have gotten back. And I told her, the rest of the story, like I've told you. And, who would have thought that would be any big deal? But I think I'm the only person who's ever gone through and come back from our culture, at least within past millennia. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty strange place. So, and there is a video that I made about it. We took a group back there that wanted to see it. And I don't know, it was 4, 5, 6 guys. So we went there. And anyway, I made a video about this. So if you ever want to see the video, just look for the Stargate of Aramu Muru at jerrywillsshow.com. You'll find it. It's a membership site, so $15 will get you in to see that and all the other documentaries and everything else we've ever done. There's hundreds and hundreds of videos in there. But if you look for Stargate of Aramu Muru, you'll find it. You can watch. When I was filming that, a very strange thing happened because Kathy and I were there ahead of everyone else. Folks were coming down to join us. We arrived about, a week or 2 early. We were going overland from Puno to La Paz, Bolivia. And we were shooting, footage because we were making a documentary about that and a lot of other things, which are all, at the show site I mentioned. And while I'm filming, I didn't notice when I was filming it, but when I went back and checked the footage, the strangest thing happened. I'm sitting right there in the doorway talking about it. I'm feeling the energy. You make the first 2 tones, it activates. I did before I went on camera. If you make the 3rd tone, it clicks into place and you're gone. Well, I made the first 2 tones. It was active and it stayed active the whole time I was filming. And it feels like a wave is pushing you back, like you're standing in a tidal pool and the wave pushes you back and then it rocks you forward again. And just over and over, very slowly. Well, I'm sitting there filming and the chroma on the camera had at one point had made this chroma shift. So what that means is like on your TV, if you were to adjust the tint, the tint goes like skin tone. The tint can go a little off to the one side or off to the other side, and it makes things look like a little different color. And so when I reviewed that footage afterwards, I thought something was desperately wrong with my camera. And I had a lot of video to shoot during that trip. So shot some more video, never saw that aberration ever again through all the hundreds of hours of video I shot thereafter. Just that one spot. So it's a real thing. And, a lot of folks have said, well, what tones did you use? And I've never really discussed that because it's kind of like, here's the keys to a car and you don't know how to drive. All you know is door opens, you get in, you sit down, and somehow it goes and you sit there and try to make it go the right direction. You don't know about brakes, accelerator, nothing. All you know is you're sitting there, there's a steering wheel and engine starts running. All of a sudden it goes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to steer the direction I want to go by going into the doorway. And there are people who have gone through it and just been forever lost. No idea what happened to them.
Oh my goodness.
So I haven't released the tones because, I think it's potentially very dangerous. Well, some folks go, hey, I don't care. I'll do it anyway.
No.
Well, of course you don't care now, but I'll tell you what, you go through it, by God, you're going to be looking around going, what the hell have I done? Because that's what happened to me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Did you see orbs of light, or did your wife see orbs of light around you during that time?
No, it wasn't like that. It was just like Star Trek. She says it's like Star Trek. Just glow out and then nothing.
Wow.
Like a bluish white glow, she said.
That's interesting. So that's
of course, I'm in this. Yeah, it is. And I'm in this Linden fog white coat against dark sandstone at night. I mean, you don't not see that.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was pretty wild, and
yeah,
I'm not downplaying it at all. But thinking back on it, when we went back with those guys to make the documentary, they asked me if I would try it again, and I said no. I don't think so. That damn thing scares me.
Yeah.
Well, they finally convinced me to try. So I made the first 2 tones and it kicked on. And I started making the 4th tone, but not at the right octave level. And holy mackerel, it started pulling on me. And I jumped back and I said, hell no, I'm not doing this. That's on the video. They had the tones, they tried it, and they had their own unique experiences. I don't think they hit the tones exactly right, but they did have their experiences, and it was fascinating to hear what they saw and what their experiences were. That's all on the video as well.
I wonder if it was lined up planetary, like with the planets in some way during the time when you did it, or if that even mattered.
No, it's on a delay lines, energetic grids that crisscross the Earth. It just happens to be built at a point where several ley lines cross, which I didn't know that at the time. But I had had a fellow that I don't know if I'd say he's professional at this, but he's pretty well known at the time. And he looked into it and came back later with, the whole thing and said, well, the pyramids are on these lines too. And there's places in England they have one line running through there, another one through France, it can go all the way through. And he explained the whole thing to me. Where I was in southern Peru, apparently 2 or 3, they crossed right there. And see, that doorway at one time, Lake Titicaca was higher. So this doorway was really positioned on a large island. And it's said that Lord Muru from Lemuria, he had come there with his wife, what's her name, Aramu Muru, and he did this in this place, and Aramu Muru went into the jungle, and they were both scientists apparently, and she did something in the jungle, which I'm not clear what she did.
Interesting. Very interesting. Wow. I know we're getting up on our time. I could talk to you for a long time because I've been listening to your stories for years now, and I like the one where Rich, and you were the guy named Rich, and he kind of went into he was on a tour with you, and he kind of teleported and then turned into a blue ball of light somehow.
He wasn't on a tour with us. I met him. What had happened is I was at the Intihuatana at Machu Picchu. That's when you could actually go to Machu Picchu, sit on the Intihuatana and meditate. You could walk around, nobody to bother you. Now it's like Disneyland with guards everywhere. You go in this way, you go that path, you come back out, you're done. But at the time, it wasn't like that at all. You just go in, leave whenever the hell you want to. So it was late at night, and I reached out telepathically to see if I could contact any ETs. And basically, the result was they came back and said, "Who are you?" So I said, "I'm Jerry Wells. Should we know you?" I said, "Probably not, but you might know the people that brought me here." And I said, the name was Zoe. I told them all about it, where they were from and so forth. And so they said, yes, we know who that is. We'll be in touch. That was the end of it. Well, 6 months later, I'm back down there with another group and just sort of forgot about it. I'll be in touch. Sounds like a brush off. So we're on our way to Machu Picchu. I'm riding on top of this old school bus. It felt like the safest place to be. This before I met Kathy. And on the other side of the Urubamba River, you go across the bridge from Agua Caliente and cross the Urubamba River, and then you are on the road that takes you right up to Machu Picchu. It's a long switchback. It climbs higher and higher and higher. And I'm on top of the bus. Other side of this bridge, this fellow waves the bus down. Looks like a hiker. Bus stops. Door opens. He talks to the guy inside. Door closes. He walks around behind, climbs up behind the ladder, comes up and sits there with me. And he looks like a nice fellow. couldn't place his nationality at all. But he was Caucasian, thin, tall. And so naturally you have a conversation. How you doing? Where are you from? And he said, he was from the Pleiades. And I said, oh, how about that? Barbara Marciniak wrote a book called Bringers of the Dawn, and it just really hit. And everybody in the Phoenix area was either Pleiadian or they were channeling the Pleiades. It was just a thing, latest craze. So I kind of chuckled and smirked, and I said, oh, how about that? I said, Barbara Marciniak wrote this book, and everybody's from the Pleiades now, seems, or else they're channeling the Pleiadians. And I said, so I understand. And he kind of looked a little disappointed and like I'd hurt his feelings. And he says, no, really, I am. I'm from the Pleiades. I said, okay. So we talked, and he informed me that I had requested a meeting, and that's why he was there. Well, that was shocking. So we got to Machu Picchu. He got down. I got down. I took care of my group, got them their tickets to go into Machu Picchu. He already had his somehow. He went on ahead of us, met up again inside Machu Picchu, and we're talking some more. And this is an area just before you get to the Pachamama. It's a big stone. You pass Pachamama Temple, you take a left, you go down this path, and eventually you go all the way up to Huayna Picchu, which is the little mountain that's right there. When you look at Machu Picchu, there's a little mountain there in the foreground. So, so we see each other later. And so he took off, went by the guard shack. There's no one there, of course, but you're supposed to sign in. He didn't. I just saw him walk right on past it. He's gone. So I walked back to one of my passengers. The distance was probably 100 feet. So it doesn't take long. But I wasn't walking fast either. So let's say it was 3 or 4 minutes. And this guy had these huge damn binoculars. They're almost cartoonish. He's looking all over the place, these things. And I said, see anything interesting? He says, yeah. He says, hey, that friend of yours you were talking to, he's made it up to the top. I said, no, that can't be possible. In good shape, you might make it up there in 45 minutes. That's running up a damn mountain.
Wow.
So he says, no, I think that's him. So he let me have his binoculars. They were heavy. Pulled them up to my eyes, adjusted them. Well, hell, there was Rich sitting up on top of the peaky point of the mountain. And he's looking right at me. And he's waving. And I pulled the binoculars back like, what the hell? And pulled them back again. And he's laughing, just looking right at me from that great a distance. So I waved and gave the binoculars back to Bob. That was the guy that had them. And that was really something. The story you're talking about happened at the Intihuatana later when we were there at night. And that's when Rich showed up again. And we had a nice long conversation. And when it was time for him to go, sounded like crumpling the plastic on a cigarette pack. The only thing I can think of that comes close to a crackly sound. And he turned into this blue marble, transparent. It was luminous. And it just floated the hell away. Just went on
Wow.
across Machu Picchu and went back around Huayna Picchu and didn't see it after that. So, years went by. Rich and I, of course, were friends. And I got to see quite a lot of things as a result of hanging out with him. He was a really neat person.
Wow.
Many years later, we were in Lima. Kathy had never met him. This was before Kathy. She did meet a Pleiadian once in Cusco. She saw him vanish right in front of her eyes.
Wow.
Once his reason for being there was done, and she was just absolutely blown away by it. But we're at a place called Pizza Street, which is basically you have this large pavilion on your left, which is Kennedy Park. And then you have this big 6-lane street, really, between that and where the city block starts. The city block ends in a taper. So it's like a triangular point, and intersecting that part of the triangle, that's called Pizza Street. And that's where everybody's making pizza. Don't know why, but it's always full of people. So we were there with a friend, and we had a good view of just a little bit of Kennedy Park in this large open pavilion-like area, just full of people. And Kathy poked me and said, "Jared, that guy over there's just staring at you." Well, how in the world would you be able to tell who that guy was? Because it's just full of people. So I took a look. Well, this one guy is really quite tall as I am. It was Rich, because I stand, more than my shoulders above everyone else. You can spot me in a crowd down there because they're not all that tall. And there's Rich, not looking much different than when I first met him. And when our eyes locked, he smiled, waved, did this, and turned and walked away. I haven't seen him since.
Wow. That is interesting. I think that I've met a Palladian once. I should have asked him, but I got nervous because I got it was a long story, but a guy walks in. I noticed our eyes lock, and we're in this room, and our eyes lock like way across, like 500 feet, like pretty far. And I'm getting like this intuitive, telepathic, like knowing, like he's not from here, and he was like, "Yeah, you're right, I'm not from here." And then I was like looking at him, and he's looking at me. Knew I knew. I'm not quite for sure because I didn't get verbal. Yes, I'm from the Pleiades, but I did get like I'm pretty shy with people. So, but I wondered, who knows? How would you? I guess
Well,
you would have to ask. They would say, "Hey, I'm from the Pleiades."
yeah, I think so. Or just say, "Where are you from?" Like I did.
Yeah, where are you
You know,
from?
had to put him on the
his
spot.
his clothes look different. Clothes like I never seen a man wear. Like it was just the material was different. The way he wore his hair was different. His eyes looked different, almost like a golden, like not hazel, but like a golden look of eye. Like I could see through it.
Did they look translucent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 I've met, I've been trying to remember, because there was a group of them that came and met me at a place called Ukuku's, which is a bar where there's music. It's a really cool place. UKU apostrophe S, Ukuku's. The cuckoo is the spectacled bear in the Andes. It's a black bear with white ring on an eye. So it's called the cuckoo. Sometimes it's both eyes. Anyway, the cuckoos is kind of a cultural melting pot. You can get all kinds of booze there and good music, or you just sit there and drink fruit drinks and enjoy the show and the people. And I was playing music that night for the local band, and I invited Rich and his friends to attend. Well, there's a table saved for them. I don't know how that happened, but it did turn out that there was a table right in the middle, saved, reserved for them. While I was getting ready, they must have come in. I didn't see them arrive. And they're all sitting there. So I walked over and said hello to everybody. And they didn't all look like, carbon copies. They were all different. There was 2 or 3 women there and about 4 guys. I think it was about 7 of them. And they all looked different. But the one thing that was common with all of them is that their eyes, including Rich's, were translucent. He had blue eyes, but it looked like aquamarine. It didn't look like any blue eyes I'd ever seen. The woman, you'd say that she had maybe brown eyes, but it was like looking through smoky quartz, perhaps.
Yeah.
It was just their eyes were just transparent, not like ours. The gal that had the green eyes, holy mackerel, I mean, looked like emeralds. The guy that was looked like an Asian, he had a Fu Manchu and a long beard and white hair pulled back. All his hair was white. He had white eyes, and they were translucent. They were all very nice folks. They enjoyed, they stayed for about 30 minutes. And after I finished, I walked back over and thanked them. And they said they had to go, and they got up and walked out. That was the end of it. I never saw any of those folks again.
Wow. That's interesting. Well,
yeah, they were friendly folks. Rich had a very unique sense of humor. Hard to explain.
What was he wearing? What type of clothing did he have on?
Kind of like me, adventure clothes. Baggy cargo pants, button-up shirt, a vest, and a medium-sized backpack. And I don't think he wore a hat. I don't remember if he had a hat or not. I don't think he did.
So, no, like fancy material that you noticed.
No.
It seems like I heard at one point a story of you saying that you noticed one of them had like a special belt or something, like some sort of technology.
That's Rich.
Rich.
He had this. When I was talking to him at the Intihuatana, he had this. It looked like a small. You know how big a Zippo lighter is? Well, this would be a small Zippo lighter. It was attached to his waist belt. Had a softly glowing bluish turquoise glow to it. It wasn't really bright, but you could tell it was glowing because it was dark. And I asked him what that was, and he says, that's how I travel. And so he explained it to me. And I said, well, let me try it. He said, no. And I said, well, show me how it works then. He says, I have to go anyway. I'll show you right now. Put his finger on it, and that crackling sounded. And in an instant, like blink your eyes, it was this glowing. It was like a sphere of light. It was the same color as that little, circle that was glowing. The thing was silver that he had on his belt. This was glowing right in the center of it. And this marble, just luminous, very pretty. And then it just stayed there for a moment. And then it just very slowly just took off and went out across, the Intihuatana is kind of a high point in Machu Picchu. And it took off, went across Machu Picchu towards the valley, went over the edge, round to the left, and that's where I lost sight of it. Because further, you would go behind Huayna Picchu. And so last time I saw that with him, I've seen that same sort of thing a few more times. But
yeah, I was wondering.
It was really fascinating. I've been to Machu Picchu so many times at night, and I've seen those blue orbs floating around. And I thought maybe it was Rich, but because I was with a bunch of other people, he didn't want to just materialize,
Yeah.
Or
That is
maybe it was
interesting.
somebody else. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen little orbs like that. I've been out like walking at the beach and like where you wouldn't expect an orb and just an orb come up to me and kind of go up and down, go around. I mean, just out by the ocean, by the water.
Mhm.
And then it went around and it flew off. And I was trying to like look in it to see if I could see anything in it, but I couldn't. It was just like a plasma ball, like this size, or maybe little, and it kind of fluxed. I don't know. I've seen that a couple times, or more than a couple times, like weird
Yeah.
little things like that.
Well, I'm sure that technology is a common piece of technology that they use, and probably others use it as well. So a very efficient
I want
way
to
of
learn how
getting
to
from
use
point
that.
A to B. Well,
I'm
I
gonna
did
tell
too.
him.
I told him, I said, let me try it. It's like, no, can't do that. Maybe I guess you'd have to know how to steer it, kind of like the
Yeah,
doorway. You'd have
right.
to know
That's what I was
how to use
thinking.
it. And I didn't have a clue how to use it. I just found it
Yeah.
remarkable. So I wanted to try it out.
Wow. So there are natural stargates. And do you think that there's a Stargate in Alabama at Green Mountain?
Probably. There are stargates in a lot of places. Well, we've discovered, because Kathy and I have been looking for them for years, not like dedicated every day doing it, but just watching reports and reading things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there probably is, in that area.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think there are stargates in a lot of places around the world.
Mm-hmm.
In this country, the ones we've been able to identify are either on protected land, which is Native American land. Like, for example, in New Mexico, there's one there. But it's you don't go there. The Apaches kill you. You
Mm.
go in and you never come back out.
Yeah.
Um, there's one in Ecuador. There's one I think there's one in Lincoln, Nebraska. Uh, the one you talked about in Alabama. But there's more than that.
Yeah.
And I think these were common places like to get from one place to another immediately. And that's why I know better than to try and jump into one, because
Mm-hmm.
how on earth do you determine where you're going to end up?
Right. Yeah.
I just got lucky.
I-
I ended up at a place where somebody I could talk to that actually spoke English, that took pity on a crazy ass traveler and decided to help him get back.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got back.
Yeah, me too.
I'm sure Kathy is too.
Oh yeah, we hadn't been married that long. Just
Ugh,
a few months. And we got married September, and here it is November.
I
So
bet you. Oof. I
yeah,
bet
it
she
was
wouldn't.
quite a thing.
Well, okay. Well, I could talk to you for a long time. You're easy to listen to. I like your
Well,
voice.
thank you.
Thank you for doing your
I
mission
appreciate
work.
it.
And thank you for
Yeah,
coming on. And I will
you
link
betcha.
your website below this episode. Everybody, thank you for watching. And if this episode resonates with you, please don't forget to like it, share it, and leave a comment below if you have questions about this. I will link in anything I can that kind of will help with this story, because Mr. Wills has a lot out there and a lot of amazing stories to share. And once again, thank you for watching. And until next time, namaste.
See you later, folks.
Thank you.